Hey folks, Mike with Chasing Trail here. It is Friday the 28th of January. Got off work early and headed out here. It is an absolutely beautiful day. 72 degrees. Hardly anybody out here. Riding with a gentleman named Glidedon that I met on the ADVRider forums. He happened to live in this area too, so we've been trying to hook up for a while and go for a ride. So he's behind me there. He is riding a KLX300. Last night I did my second fork spring upgrade. So the first time I had swapped to the K-Tech fork spring. Stock is 0.72 kilograms. The K-Tech was 0.9, but I was still bottoming out here over the water bars. So I upgraded to the, switched to a different setup with the Race Tech, which goes back to using the stock spring and then adds an additional spring to the left fork tube for a total of 1.2. So this is my first ride with the Race Tech setup, and I'm hoping this will keep me from bottoming out today. Still on my stock tires, which I've lost all confidence in, so not going to be getting crazy. Not that I ever do. So far the fork feels good. Honestly can't tell a huge difference yet. I was a little worried it was going to be too stiff over the slower stuff, but doesn't seem to be a problem thus far. It's nice not having to worry about my RPMs now that I'm through the braking period. Got the first oil change done. Alright, here's our first jump. Let's see if we can not bottom. Didn't bottom. Definitely caught some air. I think it was probably like 10 or 12 feet of air.
Come on, don't bullshit me.
Could have been 6 inches, who's to say? Yeah, it doesn't feel harsh over this. I kept the same weight fork oil in. Still soaking this kind of stuff up and not bottoming, so that seems like exactly what I was looking for. I also have less dive under braking, and if I had not had to put the stock spring back in, the Race Tech I think overall is an easier install, although I did have to get my wife's help. I needed a second set of hands for one portion. These are the kind of roads that make me a little nervous about meeting a side-by-side or a quad head-on. All these turns are kind of blind turns, and it's exactly the type of road I'd want to haul ass on if I were in a side-by-side or a quad. See how this is looking today. An action shot of him coming through there. Nice. That's the worst section of this whole road. Yep, no bottoming. Awesome. Happy with the Race Tech setup. If you are a bigger person, again for reference, I am 6'1", 220 pounds. The Race Tech setup gets my vote. Probably an easier install and better result. Although after I figured out how to get that clip off of that fork spring on the right tube now, it's no big deal. I got it off this time super easy. Hard to believe I spent 4 hours fighting with it the first time. See how it feels over the whoops. Pretty good. Pretty good. Had a lot of questions about the Rally, the windscreen and such. More just about the Rally versus the standard. If I could do it over again, I would get the standard. I kind of knew this already, but this has really helped solidify my opinion. I just prefer naked bikes. I don't ride on long enough rides to really feel like I need the wind protection. It is nice if you're just cruising down the highway or something at 65, I guess. It keeps the wind off you a little bit, but I don't mind the wind. My street bike is a naked R1250R, and I'm fine on that at 70-75 miles an hour. So I just like the clean, smooth air you get on a naked bike. This one, the air that comes off the top of the windscreen doesn't knock my helmet around or anything, but it is turbulent and very loud. And I would just prefer to have the smooth air. Also, you just kind of, this is something more subtle, and I've only noticed recently as I've really tried to think about it and compare and contrast riding this with the DRZ. You do notice or feel this whole front fairing piece on the front here. I think where I find it most bothersome is when I'm riding on the street, and I only notice it about 50 plus miles an hour, and if I'm behind a car or riding into a headwind, it does just make the bike kind of dance around and get pushed around by the wind. And it's got to be this front fairing and windshield. It doesn't happen on my DRZ at all, and the DRZ actually weighs slightly less. The tires could have something to do with that too, but they're both running like 60-40 tires, street bias tires. And if I'm not behind a car, it doesn't really happen. It's just when I'm behind a car or riding into a headwind that I notice it, and it just kind of gets blown and tossed around a bit by this windscreen and fairing. So all that's a long-winded way to say I think I would prefer the standard 300L. It's also lighter, and IMS is now taking pre-orders on the 3-gallon tank for it. It might even be slightly more than 3 gallons. So I'm gonna ride, doing this ride today on Friday. I'm gonna ride Saturday and Sunday. We're supposed to have, the weather's supposed to continue like this through the weekend. I'm gonna ride both this bike and the DRZ, and then I'm gonna decide what I want to do with these bikes. I'm definitely not gonna keep both of them. And then the question becomes, am I gonna keep even one of them? I had thought I'd want to do some longer rides on this bike to further away places where I'd be spending an hour or more on the street, then riding off-road for a while, and an hour or more on the highway to get home. And I'm finding I'm not doing that. Even now that I have the option, I just don't. For a variety of reasons. One, my riding time is pretty limited, so it's hard to get away for more than 3 hours or so. I have family commitments and obligations, a house to take care of, such and such. Two, without having a consistent person to ride with, hopefully I'll be able to do more rides with Dawn here. But without having a consistent riding partner, it's just a little sketchy to be riding out way far out. I do have a Garmin satellite communicator and stuff, but it makes me a little nervous to be going really far out on my own. That's part of it. And the biggest thing is just my favorite off-road riding is coming out here to this OHV area. This is my playground, and this is where I'm going to spend the vast majority of my time riding off-road. And for coming out here, this Rally is definitely not the best bike for it. This is really more of a, what I would call a 50-50 bike. I forgot I had someone with me. I'm so used to just holding up a fist. Now I'm the idiot not giving proper hand signals. I feel like this is really a 50-50 bike. If you're going to spend more time on the street, it's great for that. But it turns out I'm not going to do that. So a more dirt-oriented dual sport is going to be better. The other thing I just can't get past on this bike is the power. 300 cc's is not enough for me. It's adequate. It will do the job and it will get you where you want to go, but it does not have the fun factor. For me, a motorcycle is not a practical vehicle. It is purely a toy. It is something I only ride for recreation. So I need a bike to be fun. I mean, riding any motorcycle is fun, right? Don't get me wrong, but compared to riding this with the DRZ, even though this is objectively better in a large number of areas and far more practical, the DRZ is more fun to ride, and it just comes down to that power and the stupid grin I get on my face when I'm riding it. On paper, this is the objectively better motorcycle, but when I'm just riding and not thinking about specs and stats and purely just about how I feel in the moment, the DRZ is more fun. Could I be happy enough on the DRZ? Probably, but I'm not going to be. And a big part of that is the weight. It is an undeniably heavy motorcycle. I knew that ahead of time. I still wanted to have the experience of riding it, of feeling all that stuff. I'm going to spend some more time feeling that out this weekend. But ultimately, I want to be able to go on some of these more challenging trails and slightly more technical terrain. And being on a 320-pound motorcycle makes that extra challenging when it doesn't need to be. So I've already decided I'm going to get a enduro dual sport like a KTM, Husqvarna, or Beta. Anywhere from 350 to 500, I don't know yet. Probably a KTM 500 would be my top contender. I know it's way overkill for my skill set, but it's only 255 pounds wet. That is 75 pounds lighter than this motorcycle. I know the 500 will lug down pretty low. I like that. And mostly it's just the weight. Like, I don't need all the other power and everything the thing has, but it's so light, and I know it will do everything that I need it to do. That's the direction that I want to go. Like I said, I just don't see myself doing these longer rides, at least not at this stage in my life. That could change, who knows, if I find a riding partner, or as these COVID restrictions and stuff ease up, if we start traveling more, who knows. But right at this moment, I'm not going to be doing those kind of rides. I feel like I'm repeating myself. I don't want to go over the same point again and again. But mostly what I want, after now trying some different things and having the experiences, is something to just come out here and play on this OHV park with. And a KTM Husky Beta is going to suit that better for me, for what I want. Even though those bikes are far more capable than I am. I even consider going back to the 450L, but it's heavier. It's 290 pounds, so it's not that much lighter. And the way that bike, in my opinion, and I haven't ridden the KTM or anything yet, but the way the Honda, it's like a motocross bike that wants to be revved out. It feels better the harder you ride it. And the throttle's super twitchy, even with a Vortex and throttle tamer and stuff. When you're trying to go slow through technical terrain, it was really obnoxious to try to ride it that way, so it's not the right bike for me either. You can find pretty good deals on those things, and ADVRider made a video about this recently, talking about how many people in his circle of friends had been through a 450L. It was like 5 people. The one I owned was on its 4th owner with less than 2,000 miles on it, so I think I've seen a lot of them for sale with all the mods and stuff already done. less than 2,000 miles for a pretty good price. I think it's pretty common for people to buy that bike and it just not be what they thought it was going to be, like myself. So I don't want to go that direction again. Great bike. I'm not trying to shit on the bike. It's an awesome motorcycle. And if you do like more open, fast-paced desert riding, or you're just someone who likes to ride hard and fast, I think you're going to love it. I didn't love it. It's not for me. I'm hoping a KTM or such will be, but I won't know until I buy one and ride one. So that's what I'm going to do. But I'm limited on garage space, and I don't have the money for that unless I sell these. It's possible I just sell this one, keep the DRZ as sort of a more 50-50 machine if I did want to do some street. So I think the KTM is really going to be unpleasant on the street, just like the 450L was. I think riding it out here, the 12 miles or so it takes me to get out here is about as far as I want to go on the street. Whereas the DRZ, I think I could happily do more street miles, so it's possible I'll keep it just for that reason, and or to have a second bike if somebody else wants to come ride with me. I have a lot of buddies I think would maybe come ride that aren't going to buy their own dual sport, but if I have a beater like that for them to hop on and come ride with me, I think they would. So there's some value in it for me from that perspective. We'll see what happens. But I'm probably going to list them both for sale and just see. I had kind of wanted to keep this bike a little longer and get some more miles on it, and who knows, after this weekend my opinion may change. I may want to keep it longer, but right now they're still in high demand. As supply and production catches back up, they may not be in the same demand, so I'm going to take a bath on it no matter what, because I've put way too much money into it. I have way too much fun doing these builds and installing all these mods. I know I won't get all my money back out of that. I'm going to have to find someone that hopefully would want it set up exactly like I did and not take too huge of a loss on it. I think for the right person, they'll really appreciate how it's set up, and they'll get a great deal on a like new, fully built 300L Rally that's ready to rock, just through the break-in period with everything installed, still under warranty for 10 months, you know. Like I said, this bike's plenty adequate. It's not apparent because the camera always makes things look flat, but this is a hill. It's a decent climb. We are climbing up a mountain, and it's pulling right up it, no problem. But if I grab a handful of throttle, it just doesn't do a whole lot. I mean, just find a spot to do that. That's full throttle. I mean, it's not going to break the back wheel loose, even on this really loose rock. It just can't do that. Maybe you don't want it to do that. It's like built-in traction control. Like I said, when I hopped on the DRZ, I had to be a little more careful. It was easy to almost give it too much and get in trouble. On the 450L, I really had to be careful. I don't think I ever took that thing past half throttle. Once you got in the mid-range, it just wanted to rip. This is a fantastic bike for what it is. There's a mine back there. So Don is also a hang glider and paraglider. He used to do those activities in this very area, and he was telling me the lookout that we're riding up to, there's a big concrete slab up there, and it was actually owned by a mining company, and his group leased that slab from the mining company for $1, and that allowed them to have access to it even when this area used to be locked because of heavy equipment they kept up here that got vandalized. They had a key to it, and they could come up here and launch off of there, which is really cool. And then the mining company didn't have any liability if someone got hurt. It was a win-win for everybody. This is also the source of his handle, Glidedon. Hey folks, I'm back. We just rode to the top of the lookout. I should have got some footage of that. Oh well. I'll put it as my thumbnail. I already talked about it before, but just want to say I'm happy with the Racetech fork spring setup. It's not quite as plush as it was before, but it's certainly not harsh. And I think it's a fair trade-off for knowing I'm not going to bottom. Those few times I had bottomed out before, it was really unpleasant sensation. Coming down and slamming down, really felt a jolt through my arms and wrists. Sure it wasn't good for the bike either. Look at that little waterfall. That's cool. I'm gonna get some. Look at that whole little waterfall. That's awesome. Pretty cool.
Good to see water flowing.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, just had to stop and take a peek at that. I didn't see that on the way up. Didn't notice it. Don did offer to let me try his KLX300 out. I offered to let him ride this one too, but he said he doesn't want the temptation. So if we have time when we get back down there, I'll hop on that and putt around just so I could share my thoughts on that. That's another bike I came real close to buying, and had it been available at the same time as this one, I may have gone that direction because it's got the better suspension set up. Don and I are bullshitting for a bit at the top of the lookout there, and he is interested in doing some of those longer rides that I'd had in mind, so that could change my calculus on what I end up deciding to do with these bikes, as I think this bike is really well suited to doing that. If you're going to ride an hour or so and then a couple hours off-road and an hour home, I think those are the sort of scenarios where this Rally will really shine. Great 50-50 bike, and it's certainly capable if it can take a novice off-road rider like myself up the Black Diamond trails out here, then it will do what you need it to do. Don's been pretty humble, but I think he's the better rider of the two of us. He's been keeping up with me the whole time, no problem. Not that I'm trying to ride hard or anything, but I think the only reason he's ever hanging back is because of dust. It is chilly right here. See the stream over there? Pretty cool. I'm trying to think of other things to talk about with this bike. I just find I don't really have too much else to say about it. I think I've covered everything that I can think of between my various videos. I'd just be repeating myself. It's a great bike. Very capable. Very practical. On Don's KLX300. He graciously allowed me to do a test ride. So I'm going to put around on this for just a minute. Feels good. It feels smaller, noticeably smaller than my 300L. Something's squeaking. I think it's the brakes maybe. The side by side coming. Let's head up this way. The shift lever's in a good position. Much easier to shift. Accelerates great. Yeah, feels really comparable to my 300. I didn't expect a huge difference. It immediately reinforces that I think I just prefer this naked style of bike better. Suspension is a little soft for my fat ass, but that's to be expected. Very cool bike. Well, it's been a great ride today with Dawn. It's nice to finally get out here with someone else to ride with. I feel like we like to ride at about a similar pace in terrain, so that's great.